streaming as well.
Alright,
So
same here. This is Into the Origin, the Archeage podcast. I'm your host, Dersla. I don't have a picture. This is there's Valak. Is that his? Valak?
yep, that's it.
Valak. Then there's
Yep.
Mark from Archeage Source and Cryptini.
Hey.
Hello.
So, Archeage is new, at least to me. This is like my first week playing it. I haven't put too much time in it, but all these people, they actually know what they're talking about. Um, I know there's a lot
Kinda.
of concerns about it being pay to win. I know I was concerned a little bit about it just from looking at like the founder thing and like, oh, 3 stats. Like I'm used to playing like D&D and stuff like that, where like the stats are really low. So like that's huge. What is this like? So can any of you like really tell us like how the cash shop really is? Is it actually pay to win? Is it actually true what they say about anything, or is it just kind of like more like Guild Wars 2 in that, where it's just like, oh, pretty mounts and stuff like that?
If you're looking for opinions, like there's basically two opinions, and one is that all this stuff can either be gotten one way or another, or you don't have to have it. But then the other opinion is like you don't have to have it, but being able to buy a labor potion means that you can do things that other people who can't afford to buy a labor potion can't. So, what do you think, Cryptini?
The Korean Archeage, that cash shop is definitely pay to win. They just straight up sell best in slot mounts and gliders in the Korean cash shop. But so far on the North American and European cash shop, from what we've seen, everything is very well balanced in my opinion. Some of the mount armor and pet armor that you can buy is of like level 30 tier, so there's better you can get in the game, and you can actually get that armor itself in the game too. Labor pots are as controversial as ever, but on the whole I would say it's not pay to win in any sense of the word.
I mean, we can go into more detail if you guys wanted to on each one of the items
Yeah.
or something. I've got a picture somebody made and posted someplace, just like screenshots of each one of the pages from the store, and then next to it on the right-hand side, like a description of what each item does. And that's what I'm using to write this article that I'm probably going to go up Tuesday. But in my opinion, yeah, the cash shop for the American, North American, and Europe, Tryon's cash shop for Archeage doesn't seem broken like Korea's or China's or anywhere else really. But there's still going to be people out there who complain and say, you can buy these labor pots, or you can buy these whatever things that will make things go faster. And if you have no money, if you're poor or whatever, I don't know, if you can't afford to have like a patron subscription, then some people will just say automatically that's pay to win. You can't do everything in the game without putting money into it. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, what can you say? Gotta make money somehow.
Yeah, some people would say the patron system is like sort of a disguised pay to play. The condition is that you can't place down property, and you can't necessarily own property or pay taxes on unless you have a patron subscription. So that is a fairly large part of the game, and as unfortunate as it is, there's really no way around it. Just because land in Archeage is not instance, housing is not instance, so all the land is open world and it's limited. So to just prevent people from making a ton of different accounts and claiming all the land, it's been locked to the patron system. You will be able to buy patron with in-game currency because other players can buy the patron status and then sell it. You can do that with the labor pots as well, and the labor pots are going for really cheap right now, so it probably won't be too expensive for people who are just looking to play for free. So
Yeah, and then I know if you're not really going full on into farming you can use like the public farms, and that can suit your needs well enough if all you're doing is like growing a few things here and there. But like you definitely will be at a disadvantage if you're going into like actual farming in that, because you do have a very limited amount of crops you can use, and you only get a day's worth of safety there, so you can't plant anything like beans or that take longer than that. But for the most part, I feel
isn't
like you should
there
be fine.
Isn't there that one farming area that people can place down small scarecrows temporarily, or do you still have to have a?
Yeah, but you can't
Patron.
use it if you're a free player.
Yeah, I figured you still need a patron status for that.
Yeah. It's just farming though. Like all of the other different crafting avenues, like weapons, metalworking, leather crafting, alchemy. A free player will still definitely be able to do all of that. Won't necessarily be able to grow their mats themselves, but they can buy them off the auction house or have a guildie feed them to them or anything else. So, really, crafting isn't limited too much by not having a patron. You're just going to regen labor slower, which you can offset with labor pots anyways because they're so cheap on the auction house. Or you can just get the mats from elsewhere instead of growing them yourself.
And then I know I don't know if non-patrons can do this, but I know there's a system where you can have like your friends and guildies and that use your farms and that. So would they be able to use their friend's farm, who is a patron, to grow stuff if that friend has like excess space or whatever?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you would be able to do that. And from what I've seen briefly, farming doesn't really give you too much other than like supplies for commerce and cooking and that. So if you're planning on doing
you have to farm. Like, I mean, to craft a lot of stuff, you're going to have to farm, unless you buy all your materials off the auction house from other farmers. But it's the main way of like generating materials to craft just about anything. So somebody's going to have to farm. Might not be you, but somebody has to make things someplace. But yeah, I think Tryon has really encouraged people to share farms. I think that's like what you mentioned a little bit earlier. The family system and stuff like that, they've really pushed that and be like, hey, not everybody in your social circle has to pay this patron thing. You can share a house. You can share a farm. Not everybody has to have their own stuff. So,
Yeah, that's what I'm currently doing in beta. I have 4 friends who are all free-to-players, and we're all sharing my land in beta. And because of the way the tax system works now, because you pay taxes using labor, it's really easy for me to keep up, several different farms, and then they can farm it, and I just pay the taxes on it.
I know that's what me and my friends were planning on doing in Archeage. Was I was going to probably pay the patron fee, and then they're just going to use my stuff because I'm gonna have as many farms as I can because that's the part of the game I enjoy a lot of, and I'll be like, I can leave room for you guys to do what you need, or I can just give it to you, whatever. And then I think, like, from the farming and that, as you're saying how you need farming, I think that really goes into how there's sandbox, like, the sandbox system really works. Is like, you need other people in order to do anything, really. Like, you can't really do everything by yourself. Like, if you want to make armor, you're going to need people to, like, you're going to need supplies from elsewhere no matter what, really, aren't you?
it would take a long time. And, I mean, you could specialize a little bit in everything. But that just means you're going to be there for a lot longer than anybody else is, and you're going to be behind. And eventually it won't matter because everybody will catch up eventually. But whatever.
I think it's just better to plan ahead. Like in my kind of situation, we have a group of friends, or about 3 or 4 friends, and we are just kind of choose which professions we are going to focus on. So we can have a vast array of professions and not all waste all of our materials all leveling up the same professions. It's much better to work together, and that way you can get not only the materials from the farming quicker, but you can also craft things quicker, the items you need, like the hourglass from alchemy to repair your boat, or you can craft the gear that you or your friends need. So it's just much better. You progress much faster by working together. So I think that's one of the best things about Archeage. Like, there are other MMOs where you can kind of get through it by yourself, but Archeage puts a real emphasis on team play. And that is just one of the big draws for me, and I know it is for a lot of other people.
Yeah, you got to work together to get stuff done. It's not really a solo MMO. It's not a game. Like, you can obviously solo most of the quest content, but it's not a game that you're going to have a lot of fun in if you're alone all the time. It's a team-based game, or guild community-based.
I mean, you can do those YOLO trade runs with full merchant ships, but good luck.
I know, just going and getting my 1 pack I needed for that 1 quest for my bigger farm was a nightmare on itself. I had a shadow play guy holding onto the pack as he sailed the boat. It's just our one boat, and like whenever we saw any other ship, it was pretty much like a hop ship. He went stealth. I dove under the water, and we just prayed for the best. It's like I could only imagine how big of a target you'd have on your head in like a full-on trade cargo ship with 20 packs just trying to go across on your own. You're gonna be not having a good time at all.
when the game launches, you're gonna see people camping out at the turn-in points for the packages that you need to get your large farm or your little farm. I forget.
It's the 16 by 16.
Okay, and that's just gonna happen for the first couple days. You're gonna have people at not griefing, but obviously just hanging out and trying to kill people who show up with the packs, take them, turn them in for their own money, and force them to make another one, you know? That's with the system.
I mean, if they want to get the farm, they're going to have to do it, so, I mean, it's a good strategy if you ask me.
Well, luckily for that quest, you don't actually have to turn the pack in, you just have to get in range of the dock.
Oh, that is true.
Yeah, because the dock camping situation is pretty real. And that sucks. So that's a different point.
I think the most upsetting thing for me is I couldn't even turn it into the gold trader because they only wanted stuff from like the actual region. It's like, oh look, a Gilda Star. Woo!
Actually, the Gilda Stars weren't as useful as they are now. So in the alpha and before like the 1.2 patch and stuff, they were. That's another entire topic because I don't totally understand it. But now they're super required for a whole bunch of shit that they weren't required for before. So you probably do want to turn in for Gilda Stars now and get your gold some other way. I don't know.
Well, it was literally one Gilda Star. It's like I get that from like a quest easy. It's like, oh, go talk to Bob over there. Oh, hey, take this Gilda Star. It's not sailing across the ocean with a pack trying to get one Gilda Star. There's easier ways for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gilda Stars are a lot more valuable now, but I wouldn't ever recommend turning them in for one Gilda Star. Depending on how far you go, you can get a lot more. Friedrich usually gives 3 or 4 Gilda Stars per pack, so yeah, that's where you go get your Gildas, is Friedrich Isle. But you're gonna need help for that.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I've heard stories of Friedrich. I know my guild was going over there yesterday with a actual trade ship. They had like bought a bunch of people to help protect it too. So I mean, they're paying 10 gold per person whether they make it or not. So I'd imagine they made some pretty good stuff getting there if they do.
You might that's paying to get people to help you is a real crapshoot because more likely than not you're not going to make it unless nobody's on Friedrich at all, or unless you have like a massively bigger force than everybody else has, or just like better people in general. I normally do runs Friedrich alone, stealthed, and walking up to the vendors and be like, I've got one pack. That's all I've got.
Just swim across the ocean stealth. Don't even use a boat. Boats draw attention.
On my boat, but there's a couple different entrances. Like, there's entrances all around the island that you can take that are a little bit less conspicuous than others. So.
Okay. Would you want to explain what Gilda Stars really are used for people that don't know?
Cryptini knows more about this than I do. They changed, and I didn't give a shit, so...
Yeah. Gilda Stars are used to buy everything from property to the different ships. They're also used for the race horses. Just all of that good sandboxy stuff is purchased with Gilda Stars. On top of that, a lot of the high-level crafting requires Gilda Dust, which is acquired from taking Gilda Stars and grinding them down. So they're definitely used for a lot more. The plans are more important, especially on launch, because pre 1.0, 1.2, the plans to get stuff like the merchant ship were really, really cheap. It was like 50 Gilda. Now they're like 400 Gilda. So it takes a lot more stars to get these plans, and they're going to be a lot more valuable on release.
Not to mention that I'm assuming everything's going to be wiped when release comes.
Yeah.
So then it's going to be starting over, or are people going to be carrying stuff through?
There's everything
Well,
will be wiped
launch
in
will
the
be a clean
release.
slate. Yeah. Launch is a clean slate. Alpha is becoming the test server, but they're not sure whether they're wiping alpha or not yet.
Okay.
That's still...
And then, I know I have like no experience with anything PvE or PvP really, other than like the quest thing, because I'm only level 18. I'm slowly, very slowly getting my way up there. So, can any of you like explain anything about like the wars or like the dungeons and like any of the higher end fancy stuff like that?
Sure.
Where do we
Who
start?
wants to do it? Yeah, I mean, crowd
would...
control is OP.
Is it really? I've seen a few people saying that it might be, but I haven't
Yeah.
really experienced anything with it yet.
If you don't have CC, you're see me after class. You're dead. Yeah.
Gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
So,
or something to break CC, but good luck doing that.
I know I've seen the wars around, like, oh, this area's going into war and stuff like that, so I'm just more curious on, like, what does that really mean? What's really happening there and, like, stuff like that? Like, anything specific, or is it just like, hey, people are killing people here?
Yeah,
there's...
after...
Go ahead, Gertini.
like after level 30, all of the dungeons have or not dungeons, excuse me, the zones have peace war transitions. There's 5 phases of pre-war, 2 phases of war, and then there's peacetime. During the pre-war, PvP is enabled, but it's sort of meaningless because there's no reward for it. But killing people during the pre-war phases eventually pushes the zone into the war phase. And during the war phases, killing starts awarding honor points, which are used to buy a lot of different PvP-related items. And then after the war phase comes the peace phase, when people can, Care Bear quests and stuff.
And a lot of people that we play with will go to a zone and push it to war, killing people over and over and over, so that after war it'll go into peace, and then they can go and deliver trade packages to that zone safely without getting murdered along the way, or at least getting murdered while they're in the zone. So there's usefulness. There's only one real exception to this like war peace thing, and that's Halcyona, and that's a special war zone that is basically a capture the flag match. Not really, but destroy the other base of the other faction, and that still has the same 3 phase, but it's always on a timer. It doesn't matter. I don't think you can push it to war sooner than it will automatically go, right?
No, it's just peace and war. There's no pre-war for Halcyona.
Okay. So that's a special event like that. You can you go pick up a quest. You get honor points for doing it. You get these medallions or medals or something, and you can take those medals to a bench in Sun's End and craft a necklace, which is pretty good necklace, and it's upgradable. So people have an incentive to go back to Halcyona over and over and over and over and over again until they eventually get their necklace to rank 7 or something. That's going to take a lot of wars. 10? Wow, shit. Yeah. It's going to take a lot of wars because random number generator and Korean game mechanics. More often than not, when you try to upgrade that necklace, it's going to fail and send you back to rank 4, which means you're at rank 6 and you're trying to go to 7. Fuck you, rank 4.
Hey dog, I heard you liked RNG in your RNG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll change it. Who knows? I'd like it to be guaranteed, but who gives a
I'd like them to take out crafting failure. That's for sure. I've never been a fan of that mechanic.
Or just make procking, getting blues from greens and getting purples from blues more often. Make it happen more often, so I don't feel as if I'm wasting so much time.
You do have regrading for that now, so that helps offset it somewhat.
That costs money in and of itself, though. Do we want to go over regrading? Because, that's a new mechanic that came in with 1.2.
I have no idea what regrading is. So I would say it'd probably be nice to cover it, especially if it's new.
The higher level gear, Yeah, like all the different gears have rarities like green, blue, purple, etc., etc., etc. What regrading allows you to do basically is it gives you a chance to bump it up to the next tier by spending money. It's risky though because it only has a 30% chance of success, and if you fail, a couple of different things can happen. There's a chance that you fail and just nothing happens. You just lose a scroll and your item doesn't go up. There's a chance when you fail that your item will go down a grade, and there's a chance that your item will just break when you regrade it, depending on the rarity. So it's a double-edged sword, but overall it does lead to better rarity procs than we had before regrade scrolls, which were just completely random when crafting and not really able to be affected by us. So that's regrading.
How
and then
often do things actually break from it?
I don't think it's happened on Alpha yet, because in order to even have the break chance, the item already has to be a really good rarity. So it's not until like the 7th or 8th rarity that you even have a break chance. And the downgrade chance doesn't even appear until the 4th rarity. Okay. So up until the 4th rarity, it's just pass or fail. Starting from the 4th rarity, it's pass, fail, or downgrade. And then the 6th, 7th, or 8th, it's pass, fail, downgrade, or break.
So it's pretty much like once you like get near the top of the line, like pretty much like godhood weapon is when it becomes like it gets more risky.
Celestial, yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to get to Celestial is super difficult from what I've heard, but hey, you get a full like server announcement when you manage to do it. So, like X and X has upgraded this weapon to top form, and everybody knows it. Everybody wants to kill you or avoid you.
How much better are like the celestial weapons from like your average stuff?
I think it's a 10% difference between every rarity grade.
Oh shit!
So a weapon 5 grades higher is just 50% better, just flat. It's pretty good.
So don't really worry about upgrading at all. Got it.
No. It's pretty major.
I was joking.
Worry about it when you like figure out everything. Like you don't want to start upgrading shit when you're at level 10. Wait until you're 50 to actually bother doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. Don't waste your money or items or time crafting stuff for lower level. When you're at your lower level character, because it's not worth it. Take the quest rewards.
I figured I'd just wait until I could actually like use the level 50 stuff and before I started even upgrading anything.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Other PvP things. There's a lot of endgame world bosses, like just PvE mobs that are just out in the world and drop loot when you kill them. So like any MMO. The difference in Archeage is that they're not terribly difficult mechanics. All of them are extremely simple mechanics. Even the Kraken is super simple. But what makes them difficult is the fact that any random hoo-ha can come and kill you while you're trying to do that world boss. So it leads to it can lead to some
screw everything.
Yeah, it can lead to some really large standoffs. In Alpha, Mark and I's guild, Wicked, had a standoff with another guild, Orenthal, for about 8 hours one day on the Kraken. We were basically just sitting on opposite sides of the Kraken, and none of us were making a move, because if any of us tried to attempt it, we would just destroy their boats. So it gets really intense.
Yeah, it definitely got intense, and there was a couple times where like people would start it, and then you'd break it up, and then they'd come back and start it again. You break them up, or you die, or whatever. And it's incredible, really, but it takes a lot of like the same thing will happen to Halcyona. Like one side won't have enough people to win the war, but they do have enough people to defend their base. So they'll spend the 2-3 hours. It's 2 hours max, right? Somewhere around there, just defending their base and ruining the fun for the other side, which is cool, but also kind of pointless.
Actually, Halcyona's only like it's only like an hour 50, so Halcyona's not that bad.
Like our own personal experience, like in Aurorian Empire, we were trying to do the pirate boss on Friedrich Island, and every time you would go there, and there's like maybe 1 or 2 members of the other faction, and just as you're about to pull the boss, it can be maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and before you know it, there's 40, 50 people from the other faction, and they're just coming in to ruin your day, not giving you a chance to do that boss. It's just it's really, really as hell. That happened to us a few days ago, so we decided, okay, we'll open up a portal, we'll go to Hasla, and we'll do the boss there. Went there, pulled the boss, same thing happened again. You know, other faction just totally groups up in massive amounts of numbers. So really is, you need to kind of split off into a group to defend the group that's fighting the boss. So you have one group fighting the other faction and one group fighting the boss, and it really is an epic experience, I have to say.
So is everywhere PvP, essentially? Like you're always flagged in like the higher level areas, like no matter where you are, or...
In the ocean, yes, because the ocean, like, supposedly will go in and out of war, but it's basically always in war.
Yeah.
There's no peacetime for it. Fredic Island is always in war or hostile or whatever. And Aurora was supposed to be always in war, except for the new zone they added, which is like Care Bear Zone, where nobody can kill each other. You're just like... Why'd you do this? They took the entire continent that's supposed to be like the continent where you can kill anybody anytime, and make it like cut out one zone, be like this zone's safe. You can be you're fine there.
Luckily, though, that zone will not be an in-net launch for NA and EU.
Yeah.
So Aurora will be full PvP all the time. The difference between Aurora and the other PvP zones is while the other PvP zones cycle war phases, including the oceans, they cycle between the two different war phases. Aurora is never technically in war, it's just open PvP. So you can't get honor from Aurora, but you can kill whoever you want there.
It's super annoying. Like, spend a lot of time mining up there, and people will run in, and they're just like, nope, you can't be here. And it's like, whatever. Die.
So, can you have, like, keeps in that? Like, I know I've been, like, looking at stuff, and, like, there's, like, gliders with, like, bombs, and there's siege equipment, so I'm assuming you can use this for something. What is that normally used for? Is it used for, like, breaking down gates in that? Is it just, like, decoration?
It's used for, like, the namesake thing that this game is about.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry for cutting off, man.
There's 4 different castles on Aurora. Aurorian Empire has one, and New World Order has one. Wicked, New World Order, we both have castles. You guys are getting Siege Day, aren't you, actually? Right? Aurorian Empire?
Yeah, well, kind of, but we bought the Siege Scroll ourselves, so...
Okay.
The Siege is open, we're not being sieged by anybody.
Alright.
So we're just kind of cheesing it that way to keep our castle and our farms up there.
Yeah, but basically you have a bunch of different castles up there that guilds can own. One guild per zone, and then other guilds can then siege the castles, and it's this huge 70 versus 70 battle where there's the attacker and the defender trying to claim the castle. So those are pretty intense. Yeah.
What are some of the perks for, like, holding the castle? I'm assuming there's some perks to it other than, like, haha, I've got a castle and you don't.
Yeah, well, if the guild owns a castle, they own the land in that area, and then the members of that guild can then put down their houses, they can put down their farms on that land, and then, you know, it's easier to find farm space, because it can be very difficult to find farm space, especially in the alpha right now. So if you have a guild who owns a castle in Aurora, it can be easier for you to get your farm or your house down. But whenever a siege actually starts, all of the farms and the houses and everything disappear. And that's just so they don't basically get in the way of the PvP. And so basically, the castles are very, very valuable if you're a big farming guild, especially because, you know, there's a lot of farm space there, and that can be, you know, you can grow a lot of materials for trade packs there.
What happens if you were to lose the siege? Like, what happens to all your farms and that? Is everything on there, like, wiped out, or is it, like, what happens to it?
That I'm not sure. Like, I've never actually lost a siege.
Within a certain vicinity of the castle, everything can be destroyed. So, if we were sieged, if Wicked was sieged and we lost, which would never happen, we're the best. But if Wicked was sieged and we lost, then all the land directly around the castle could be destroyed by anyone. The land that's in that zone but not directly next to the castle, that gets to stay up. And another one of the perks of having a castle is that you collect taxes from everyone who has property in that zone. So while the land directly around the castle is for the guild only, everywhere else in that zone can be placed by anybody, and the lord of the castle collects taxes from them, which can generate a lot of money.
Okay, so
the Lord also gets like some new horse and armor, and can give tokens to guild members to buy costumes and other shit from Mirage Island. So it's a very powerful thing to have. If you have a castle, you can dote on all your friends and your guildmates and basically beef yourself up to levels that you're probably going to need to take on like the Kraken or other things, get your HP above 20k, stuff like that. Yeah.
So essentially, if you were to lose the castle, would it be dangerous for you to farm up there if like the guild doesn't like you or something, or would they let you stay there just because they're claiming your taxes and stuff like that? Or how does that really work out usually? Like, do you have any, like, random people with their farms up there, or from when you took it, or what happens?
Well, we claimed our castles, like Aurorian Empire, and... No, wait, you guys got the old GM castle, right?
I'm
pretty
not quite sure.
Yeah, I think
not quite sure.
There was a GM castle that Aurorian Empire sieged to get theirs. New World Order / Wicked, we were the first to claim in that spot, so we just got it.
Okay.
I know Forced Crow recently sieged and conquered Ornthal, and they destroyed all of the Yeah, they did. They destroyed all of the houses around that castle, and they have their own stuff up in there. And then the other properties... What?
Is that the only castle that Ornthal had?
Yeah, they only had... You can only have one castle per guild. But yeah, all the other property in the zone stays up, and they just collect taxes from it.
Okay, so it's not it's that there's like different property in the zone. It's not like really close to the castle, the ones that stay up.
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking like it was just a little bit further out from the castle. So like the castle itself has like a property zone around it, and then there's like other separate ones around the place. Okay.
Exactly.
And then you were saying that like they had to kill like the Kraken to get like their health higher. So like does killing the world bosses boost you up, or is that just from like getting materials for crafting better gear?
Yeah, it's indirect. Like the Kraken, for example, when he dies, he drops a bunch of tentacles, which you can take to fishing stands and sell for a lot of money. He also drops like heroic gear. Some of it's really good, some of it's not so good. The world bosses don't beef you up so much. It's more of the reverse. Like, when you get the castle, that gives you access to what Mark was talking about, the Lord's costumes, which help gear people up, and then it helps you take on the world bosses and the high-end PvE, which we haven't really talked about yet, if we want to.
Yeah, we do. What are some of the higher ends of PvE? I know there's dungeons. I don't know like how those are though. Is that like the highest, or is there like stuff above that? How does the PvE really work?
There's dungeons, obviously, like the instances. There's also some quest lines that will take you to places that are, those quest lines are more difficult to pick up, and some are kind of hidden. So if you're into that kind of stuff, some of that's out there. That's my personal favorite thing. But yeah, if you want to do PvE stuff, if you want like dungeons to take on or world bosses, they're there for you. There's some really complicated ones and some difficult ones to get through. Level 50 and higher type dungeons, Serpentis, Sea of Drowned Love. Even the library had, or the encyclopedia room had a dungeon. Did you guys ever do that, Cryptini, or?
There's two different like instances within the library that we have access to right now. One of them is sort of a gauntlet where it just throw waves of mobs at you and you kill them for rewards, and the other one is like an actual boss. Wicked has cleared both of them. The PvE in Archeage isn't exceptionally difficult, challenging, or innovative. Like, if you've played Rift, or if you've played WoW, or if you've played, like, EQ2, like, the PvE in those games is just objectively better. But it does have some challenging content. The mechanics are kind of cheesy at times. Like one of the bosses in Serpentis is you just stack on each other and just spam the magic immunity circles until you killed it. Some of it's pretty cheesy, but some of it's actually pretty difficult and challenging and like fun encounters. Like Sea of Drowned Love, the boss Tahuda in there throws like tidal waves at you and all this other stuff you have to dodge, and that one's pretty cool. So it's sort of a mixed bag, and I wouldn't like for hardcore PvE players, like the raiding type players, probably wouldn't recommend Archeage if that's the only thing they like to do, because Archeage is definitely more of a PvP focused game.
Yeah,
and there's not all that many dungeons yet. Like there's what, 3 real high end ones maybe, and
right.
Other than that,
right? There's one level 50 dungeon, or 2 technically, and then there's 2 level 50 raids that are instants, and then the world bosses, which aren't exactly difficult from a PvE standpoint.
Have they shown any like have they said anything about wanting to make like harder PvE content or putting like more stuff for it, or are they pretty set on keeping it mostly PvP based?
Patch 1.7 has the Leviathan.
It's an open world raid boss. So that's still kind of PvP focused in a way because it's in the open world. Generally, the player base in both Korea, Russia, Japan, and here, they're all pretty much against instances in Archeage just because it takes from the whole open world thing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people were actually really disappointed with the fact that you can't kill other players in the library, which will hopefully change in our version when we get it because it's being removed. But yeah, I don't necessarily know that I'm sure it will get some extra PvE stuff in there. Like I'm sure at one point Excel will throw in another raid or 2. But as far as like on the radar, I don't think there's anything currently.
What do you really get from the raids? Is it like WoW and Rift and that where you actually get good gear from it, or are you like just going for like materials for crafting better gear, or like what's the reward for really going through those?
It's both. Yeah, there's crafting materials. There are some crafting materials and some dropped gear. But the important thing is that nothing that comes out of the instances is best in slot. Crafted is better than anything that comes out of the instances. It's extremely difficult to craft that better gear, but the instance will give gear for, I guess, people who are slower at getting their crafted gear. And it'll be decent.
Do you need to do instances for getting the best in slot gear, or could you completely avoid them if you wanted to?
No.
You can completely avoid them.
Yeah, you can avoid them.
So if you were if you were one of those players that like hated raiding and that, you could completely avoid that aspect of the game and still be the best in slot.
It's a big draw of Archeage is that you can craft the best stuff. Like even the dungeons, they drop good stuff with special effects, but you can craft stuff that's normally better, especially if you upgrade it or just get lucky.
Would I be able, like, if someone was a crafter, would you be able to craft like the best in slot gear and then sell that to someone else, or is it like bound when you get it?
Nothing crafted is
never gets bound.
Okay, so you could essentially make the best in slot gear and like give it to your friends and that, so like they don't actually need to craft it themselves. So it's not like a lot of games where if they do have best in slot gear like that, it's pretty much like, oh, you got to craft it yourself. You can't actually sell it.
Another great
you can
thing
sell
for
it and your
crafters-
name's on it too. So
Oh, is it? So they can see where it came from?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, another great thing for crafters in Archeage 2 is that when you equip crafted gear, it's not bound either. So when you're done with your old set of gear and you're gearing up for a new set, you can sell that old set or give it to somebody else. You can just keep passing it down.
Okay, so you never need to stick with the set of gear, essentially. So you can always sell whatever you had to someone else who would need it, and then get your new set.
Yes, if it's crafted, yes. The dungeon gear is bound, but the non-dungeon gear, the crafted gear, is not.
Okay. And then, are there, like, is there anything like the transmog system or anything like that where you can, like, show off, like, how you want to look instead of having, like, the look that, like, your gear normally has? So, like, everyone in, like, the best in slot doesn't look the exact same?
you can overwrite looks. So
Yeah, there's
go ahead, John.
material. That's fine. There's a material called Fusion Alembic, and at the moment you can get that in the store for 45 credits, I think it is. Basically, you can bring that to like a blacksmith or something, and then they can alter the appearance of. You can keep the stats of your main item, but use the appearance of another item. So it's basically like transmogrification in other games like World of Warcraft. So you can completely customize your character's appearance in that regard, and there is, costumes on the store as well that you can get. So you can be wearing a full set of awesome gear, but walk around wearing a suit and just looking fabulous in that regard. So it is pretty awesome.
I kind of want to do that. Kind of.
You want to walk around in a suit?
Yeah, why not? That, or like if they let me override it with like swimsuit stuff, I'd do that. But,
I'd probably do that if I could.
Swimsuit, and then like overwrite all your weapons to look like fish. 'Cause that's also. Hey, how far has that Tuna Club gotten? How far has that gotten? Is it still arcane?
We're not ready to reveal that to the public yet.
Oh man.
That will I'll tell you in game, but the Tuna Club's journey is still underway.
Okay.
What is the Tuna Club?
There's just a random item you can pick up from like NPC stands in the game. Like, there's just objects placed in the world. It's basically this fish that you wield two-handed. It's a two-handed fish. You can smack people with it. There's a one-handed version. They call it the smackerel.
That is actually what I'm currently using, is my smackerel, because I couldn't find an actual one-handed item, so I have my shield and my smackerel.
You can also pick up a broken bottle. You can pick up broken bottles from like next to drunk guys and use that as a one-handed weapon as well, but it's got even worse stats than the smackerel. So I at the beginning, like when I first started playing Alpha, I was using one hand broken bottle, one hand fish, and it was like, I don't give a fuck what I'm doing, but
well, I primarily use a bow for my damage, so having the smackerel doesn't really hurt me too much.
Yeah.
I figured I'm a cat, I have fish. Might as well hit someone with my fish.
There you go.
So how does like, I know there's a whole combo system and all that. How does that really work in group play? Because like I know in like solo, it's like I can see some like the combos by themselves, like where like I can snare someone and then I can increase the snare with like another skill and stuff like that. We're just like running around with my archery and all that, just applying all that stuff. How does that really, like, does that get enhanced at all in group play, or how does that work?
You can combo off each other. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The combo system is really complex. When I'm in a group, we don't usually sync up our combos most of the time. Like, there are some combos that we'll do together, like if there's multiple mages in the party, we'll all arc lightning together because that combos off itself. Mm-hmm. When somebody enervates a target, we'll all use our enervate combos because those are usually pretty strong, but for the most part, we don't necessarily synchronize our combos because it just happens automatically because there's so many of them, usually.
Yeah. There's a picture out there with like a freaking web of, I think the Russians or somebody made it, of just like webs of all the skills that combo with other skills, and it's just like a mess. Everything touches everything else. It's weird.
So essentially the combo systems in group play, they're not as important as when you're playing by yourself, because like there's just so many effects on the thing that you don't really need to worry about it at that point. It's just like, oh, it's doing more things now.
Unless it's some kind of weird requirement or something for some boss, then it only really matters when you're by yourself and you can't generate enough damage or something. Then you actually have to worry about, oh, is this guy stunned? Should I fire bleeding shot at him so I can get more blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Is there anything that like doesn't synergize really well? Like I know some people have commented saying like sorcery and archery, or I think it was sorcery and songcraft aren't like, they're not that great because they just synergize with themselves pretty much. They don't really touch with anyone else's.
James is really upset about songcraft not being good at stuff, and I was like, it's songcraft.
Isn't songcraft used for everything though? I don't know. Everyone I've seen is always like vitalism, or like all like the Healy people I've seen are always like vitalism songcraft. So I figured that they just kind of went hand in hand or something.
Well, songcraft is useful for healing.
Songcraft is the AoE healer.
Okay.
Vitalism has one AoE heal, and then Songcraft has the constant one and the ricocheting one. So Songcraft is generally used for AoE healing, but other than that, Songcraft does not like flow with anything at all. I'm like beyond the combo system. You're just looking for trees that synergize in general, and Songcraft just does not synergize with anything anymore.
It's got some passives though.
Not anymore. It used to have like Zeal is still a big one, but Zeal is this passive in Songcraft where if you spend enough points in the Songcraft tree, and you used to need like 8, now you need 10 to unlock it. It basically quadruples your crit damage on magic attacks. It got nerfed really hard in the last patch, and it's just no longer viable to do Zeal builds. Spellsinger was sorcery, shadow play, Songcraft. That was really popular before the patch. Now it's just not, because it's just not nearly as viable. So if you're going Songcraft, you're either a healer who's getting it for the AoE heals, or you're a dedicated bard. There is really no other reason to take Songcraft.
I know I was wanting to make a bard character for a while, so I was like, oh, I'm going to do Songcraft, and as I'm using it, like, this is just so much weaker than my bow. It's, like, painful with how much weaker it is than my archery stuff, so I ended up switching back.
It's helpful if you want to go fast.
The job of the bard is to buff the party. They don't really do much themselves. You can do damage as a bard if you have a staff, but it's not comparable to the other magic classes.
So pretty much if you're going with the bard, you're pretty much going as a you're buffing and just supporting your team in that way. It's not something you really want to be using for like damage. It's more like controlling enemies a little bit and then buffing your allies.
Exactly.
Okay. Is there any like classes that like just flat out aren't good and like aren't used anywhere? Is everything has like its niche somewhere in some way that like it's used essentially?
There's no
there are
totally useless
classes.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, there's terrible combinations, but there's no like terrible skills. I mean, aside from maybe that stupid bone trap thing for archery.
Oh yeah.
It's useless unless you just want to screw up people's targeting.
Wait, what is the bone? Oh, is that the cage or whatever?
Yeah, the cage thing, it's useless. There's also that hover thing for archery, which just makes you a big fat flying target. You're just like, why do these two things exist? Why?
Yeah, I know I looked at the hovering thing, I'm like, oh, this would be really good, and then I saw like the, like, you ignore, like, it like ignores all your defenses. Like, that's awful. Why would you ever
It's only useful for cheesing stuff. Like, there's like boss battles and shit that you can do if you hover and you backflip and you get on a place where the boss can't hit you, then you don't have to worry about taking damage for the entire boss battle. So,
well, I mean, I
stuff
guess
like that.
that's sort of useful.
Hover can be used as a DPS cooldown too, because it actually does increase your damage.
Yeah.
But as far as terrible combinations go, I think the worst class in the game is Destroyer. That's Battle Rage, Archery, Sorcery. It's just the worst class. There's just nothing redeeming about it. It's just the worst.
Why is it so bad? Is it just...
It's all attacks.
It's because of the way that, like, gear gives you stats.
Oh... So like there's no
Yeah.
like jack of all trades gear. It's either you do this or you do this sort of thing. Okay.
Yes, there are a couple of viable hybrids. They're either melee damage or healing, or range damage and healing. But for most part, you're going to specialize in one thing and do that one thing.
Yeah. I know at the moment I'm using Druid, which is Vitalism, Archery, and Defense, because I wanted to be a tanky ranged healer with a bow. So I was like, whatever. I'm not planning on doing anything high-end at the moment. It'll be fun. Doesn't seem
Plus,
too
you get
bad.
a cool name.
What?
You know, you Druids. You know, Attack of the Druids, Revenge of the Druids.
I mean, the best part is that because I'm a druid, I can use that as my excuse for my illegal farming. I am destroying the invasive species.
Protecting the...
I am protecting the natural order.
Exactly. I've just been playing mostly archery, shadow play, plus like the basic like stone arrow and what was the Oromancy mix? What do they call that? Everybody played it.
Primeval.
That's it. And then I was leveling up Songcraft, like Evan's song, combo when I was like, I'm done. I'm getting. I got tired. So, but a lot of people played Primeval. Like Archery and that combo just seemed a little bit too popular. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. So the PvE stuff that's pretty like that in like the like group play combo system. That's like those are probably like the lowest points of the game. You'd say like in the groups the combo system just kind of falls off, and then the PvE or what do you think about the PvE? Like
combo system still works. It's just like no one pays attention to it. Too much shit is happening.
Okay, so it just becomes less important. Because I know leveling by
it's
myself.
Like it's there, but you wouldn't work around it.
I know leveling by myself and that, like, I thought the combo system's pretty cool, and like, cause like, there's all the stuff you can play off of with it, but like, I don't have any experience with like group stuff or anything like that, so it's kind of like no clue how that's gonna really, or how that would affect it. So I'm still a noob. How is like the story in that in the game? Does anyone really care about the lore or anything like that? Is there any to really worry about, or is it just kind of sort of there, or like told through the quest? That makes sense.
Cryptini has one opinion on the lore. I have a different opinion.
I think the lore is really convoluted. I don't like it.
I've been looking at like the database files, so
yeah, it's all over the place.
So it's not like in like games like WoW or anything like that where you can at least get a really good idea of like the story in that just from like looking at a few areas. It's just like scattered everywhere, or
yeah, I don't know. In my opinion, the Archeage lore is all these different really cool things that are very, very loosely tied together and don't really work. But that's just my opinion.
Ah, okay. I see what you mean. Mark, what do you think of it?
I also agree that whoever's like designing the game, like whoever's actually been told to like take all this cool shit that's been written, take all these story points and put them in a cohesive manner, hasn't really bothered. Like I guess they do more function over form over there. It's like, well, there's lore, but no one pays attention to it, so we're not gonna. They have released 2 books in Korean for the game, written by this pretty high-level author in Korea. Like basically, they're J.K. Rowling's of Korea. She's a really good fantasy writer, but obviously those haven't gotten translated. No matter how many times I've bugged Tryon about doing it, please God, translate the fucking novels, but they won't. So it'll probably never happen. There's a lot of lore that's hidden in diary pages you're going to find around the world. There's a lot of lore that's hidden in quests and things like that a lot of people just aren't going to pay attention to. And then further on, when you get to Aurora, you'll start finding more like hidden quests and things like that take you around and have you visit people. There's secret books you can craft out of the scraps of paper that you find around the world. There's all kinds of stuff that me looking through the database, there's actual like hard information. It's like, here's what happened, and before the Aurora got blown up, and this is what happened after Aurora got blown up. But most people won't find it because it's too well hidden, or it's not hidden, or whatever. It's kind of sad. Like it's there, but no one's ever going to really find it. That's depressing, I guess.
I know just from the quests that I've done so far, like I know like the lore seems kind of interesting and all that, and like I do like how the story is told, at least through questing. How like every now and then they'll do like the little movie and like show and like tell you about like stuff that like happened and like what's going on, that sort of thing. Like I don't have like, but like I wasn't sure how like that kept going on or like anything like that, because like I don't know anything about like the areas I'm going through. It's just kind of like they're there and like stuff happens there, but like there's nothing really on anything.
What side were you playing on? East or west? Were you Rania?
Eastern. I'm the cat.
Okay. I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure about that side of the world because I haven't really played much on that side. But there's some zones with some serious hardcore lore on the west side, like White Arden, which has like serious ties into like the immediate aftermath of the cataclysm on Aurora, where everybody showed up when they went through the World Gate was in White Arden, and that was the first like human settlement. You'll find ruins of it over there. So it's there. Like this information's there. There's if you really want to look into it, but otherwise it's just not. No one's really going to care, I guess. It's a little bit hard to get into. It's not thrown in your face.
If you are into the lore, like you can kind of, if you read the quest text, you can get an idea of the story, but it isn't kind of the full information of the whole story. But I have gone through. I play on the west side, but I have played on the Furin starting zone, and I read all the quest text going through, and all of the quest text does tie together very nicely to create a general idea of what you're actually doing and why you're doing these quests. But like Cryptini said, once you start getting, once you get into the higher levels, it's very difficult to tie in so many different aspects into the game into one solid lore story. It just kind of is loosely tied up. It doesn't really tie together very well. But in the starting zones, from my experience, the quest text does a very good job of bringing you through the story of why you're there.
All the landmarks, all the monuments around the world, like in Souls Reed Peninsula, there's the mountain that's cut in half kind of looking thing, and that's really actually an artificial mountain. It's not like natural. It's not a natural formation. It was created as like a monument to this Archmage king whose name was like Souls Reed or something, who founded that castle that's on that peninsula. And he was the first one to complete some maze somewhere that I can't find. I'm guessing it's some kind of, something they're holding on to probably for later. Who knows? But there's a lot of stuff in that world like that. Every little thing has its own little story. There's no real anything in the world that I can tell so far that doesn't have some kind of backstory or meaning. Like the buildings in Marianople, the giant ones, they're there for a reason. The giant tower is there for a reason. It's got a name. It's sorry, monologuing.
Oh, it's fine. And then I know that I know James was just distraught that he could not play a dwarf, and I know one of my friends is also really upset that he won't be able to play a Warborn for a while. Does anyone have any idea on when that's going to when they're coming out and stuff like that?
The only real response we've had from Tryon is that they want to get the game out first before they start focusing on the other races. So it hasn't really been, at least from what I've seen, any real solid information. They just want to get Archeage out and released in Europe and North America before they start looking at the future and the other races. But Warborn especially, I really like the look of.
Yeah, Korea XL has said the new races will be in 2015 for Korea, and that's all we know, really.
We've seen concept art of them, so we kind of know what they're going to look like. But yeah, I'm guessing when it probably 2.0 patch or something will probably be when they drop that kind of stuff. It's estimate.
So they're coming, but it's not like top priority. It's gonna be a while before the game before we actually get the new races in that. Maybe. Yeah, next year, like Kurtzini said, and then there will probably be some lag time between that coming out and Trine Worlds actually getting into their version. All right. Well, I think that's about all for this episode of Into the Origins. We'll be back in 2 weeks, or no?
Yep.
Yeah, 2 weeks to cover the next episode. All right. See you guys.